Hey, Bruce.
Hey,
Thanks for
what's
joining us today.
good? Yes, thanks for having me. Fantastic.
And thank you to our audience as well for joining us for Happily Ever After Hours with animator, director, and producer Bruce W. Smith.
What's up, audience? How you guys doing?
My name is Tracy Timmer, and I'm the Senior Public Programs Coordinator at the Walt Disney Family Museum. And I'm here with my colleague, Bree Bertolacini, our marketing manager and co-host of our podcast, WDFM. As part of Happily Ever After Hours, Bree will be interviewing our special guest before we hand it over to you, the audience, to submit questions using the Q&A feature in the Zoom platform. As a note, please submit all questions to the Q&A section, which should be at the bottom middle of the Zoom screen. We won't be answering questions in the chat function. We won't get a chance to get to everyone's questions, but we will get to as many as we can. Additionally, we will be posting a recording of this event tomorrow morning at noon for anyone who missed it or who just can't get enough. The recording will be available to everyone for 48 hours, after which time it will be available for members only in our new members only portal. If you're a member, you can find the link and password in the member e-news that is sent at the beginning of each month. Before I introduce our very special guest, I want you to know how much we appreciate your support during our closure and hope you have a chance to enjoy our many virtual offerings that we've announced. More are coming soon, including additional guests for Happily Ever After Hours and special virtual educational offerings. Be sure you're signed up on our e-news and join us on social media to get the latest updates. Your support helps keep these virtual programs going, so consider becoming a member at waltdisney.org/membership or consider a donation at waltdisney.org/donate. And now to introduce our very special guest today. Bruce W. Smith began his journey as a student at CalArts before being hired at Disney on the production of Who Framed Roger Rabbit as an animator. He went on to co-direct Warner Brothers' live-action animation hybrid Space Jam before returning to Disney to become a supervising animator on Tarzan's Kurtjack and on Pacha in Emperor's New Groove. While still working on feature films, Bruce began pursuing his passion for animated TV cartoons with the creation of the Disney Channel original series, The Proud Family. He co-founded a studio called Jambalaya Productions and crafted over 50 episodes of the series along with a Proud Family movie. He then returned to feature film as a supervising animator on the villainous Dr. Facilier in The Princess and the Frog, and on Piglet, Kanga, and Roo in the Winnie the Pooh movie. He would go on to serve as the lead animator on the short Tangled Ever After, and worked on visual development for the films Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen. Today, he's returning to his Proud Family roots with the upcoming Disney Plus series, The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. Thanks so much for joining us today, Bruce, and welcome.
All right, thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys. Tracy, Bree, thanks for finding me. And I wanted to make sure I craft some time to say hello to you guys. You know, I visited the Disney Museum up there, and it's just an amazing space. I mean, me and the crew, we had a good time, you know, looking at the history of who we are as animation artists and stuff like that. And it's really a great place, you guys. If you haven't been, I would say definitely once this whole COVID thing clears up, make it a destination stop for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, thanks for that nice little shout out. We're glad you were able to visit the museum, while we were open. We're definitely missing it now, but at least we're bringing that animation kind of inspiration into the homes still with our Happily Ever After Hours.
No doubt. Yeah, this is a cool tool. I talked to Kevin Leem actually hit me up and he said how great of a time him and Brenda had sitting down with you guys. So yeah, it's fantastic.
They're the best.
This. Yes.
But
I know people are wondering what's behind me. I have to say I am doing this interview from the living room of the Proud Family. So just wanted to let you know that Oscar, Penny, and everybody is upstairs chilling, probably watching off the balcony or something like that. I'm not sure. But yep, I'm here. It's pretty cool. It's nice and warm.
Well, hopefully nobody comes bursting in through the door during the Zoom.
Let's hope the sugar mama doesn't come in. We're dealing with sugar mama sometime.
Well, that's great. Well, let's jump into some questions and kind of how you were talking about kind of the genesis of animation and kind of all of that, the inspiration. And you yourself went to CalArts, founded by Walt and Roy Disney, to learn animation. Kind of going back to your roots, what were some of the animated films or shows that inspired you to pursue animation?
Oh, wow. For me, it all started with, I grew up on TV. I'm a child of the late 60s, early 70s, and that's when Saturday morning TV was sort of at its finest for all you people who don't, you're not necessarily familiar with Saturday morning TV. So this is the Saturday morning TV experience was waking up early Saturday morning at about like say 7 a.m. This is after you've had that hard week at school. You get up 7 a.m., you get the biggest bowl of cereal that you actually can get, and then you settle in front of the TV and watch things like the Jetsons, the Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, like all these really great classic cartoons, Mighty Mouse. Hanna-Barbera had a whole row of cartoons back in the day. They used to go from like maybe 7 a.m. to like maybe 11 a.m. in the morning. So you got about a 5-hour block. It was like your own Netflix in a sense almost, right? Because you had your own block of shows and hopefully you had enough cereal to last all through that. So Saturday morning was really the real thing back in the day. And so I used to plant myself in front of the TV and just absorb all of that sort of animated fare. So I grew up, and I was, as an artist, I'd never considered myself a great artist. I just loved to draw. So after watching all of that stuff, I would just kind of huddle in my own room and start drawing all the stuff that I can remember seeing on the screen. And I just, for me, it was, I gravitated to the simplest of character designs and stuff like that. So, for me, someone mentioned George in the Jungle in the chat room. It's like, yep, that was me for sure. Super Chicken, all of that stuff. And I used to draw all of that stuff. So, but what really changed the game for me was I remember going to the movies as a kid and went to go see 101 Dalmatians. It was a reissue of 101 Dalmatians. And when I saw that, I couldn't really quite grasp what I had seen after I left, because I thought the humans really moved in a way that you didn't really see characters move and act in Saturday morning TV. Like I sensed that right away. I was like, wow, well, these characters, they look realistic, but very like exaggerated at the same time. And this was obviously kids back before there was such thing as DVR and stuff like that, where you just had to rely on this nugget right here to try to remember everything that you drew. So remember everything that you saw. So I actually just raced home after I saw that movie. And I remember that song, the Cruella de Vil song, was just drilled in my head the whole time. And I just remember Roger acting that out and just the animation, man, being blown away by the animation. So I just kept drawing all the scenes that I remembered in the movie. And I realized right then and there, this is something I really would love to do. So that for me was the launching pad for my love and embrace for animation.
Wow, that's pretty great. I do have a special place in 101, my heart for 101 Dalmatians. Just the character design, all the spots. I love it. Still
holds up. It's one of those things where it's like, it's so funny. I look back on certain things I used to watch as a kid, and you look at them now, you're like, wow, I was really, man, it didn't really hold up well. Man, 101 Dalmatians still holds up. It's still something that I will watch. I remember when Disney Plus went down, and that was the first movie I pulled up on Disney Plus. I've seen it, 1,000 times over, but for me, it was like, that's the go-to. I want to see this on the big screen again, So yeah, it's something that never goes away.
Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful film. And kind of going into your career, when you did eventually start working for Disney, you were a key part of animation for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but also, with the combination of live action and animation with Space Jam. So, the two films came out 8 years apart. And how had the process or technology changed when it came to adding animated characters to the live action world? And, what were the big similarities and differences between the two productions?
Well, both were similar because I think when we did Space Jam, we were right on the cusp of digital technology meeting analog technology. We're making a movie. So when we were doing Roger Rabbit, I mean, certainly it was much more manual in the sense of blending live action and animation. I don't know if anybody's ever seen shots of the making of Roger Rabbit, where how they would rig props. When Hoskins has to go and he does something Roger Rabbit, he has to, and he squirts water out of his mouth or whatever.
Mhm.
I remember the live action footage. The live action footage was just Hoskins in a living room and a long pipe of water, just a long pipe of water. And so the animator just basically animated over that long pipe to create Roger Rabbit, to create the illusion that it was the character that's spitting out the water. It's unique and cool. You know, what happens when you have limitations, a lot of really, you know, sort of necessary things are born out of limitations. So, so things like that now, sort of as you move into Space Jam, we have this thing called green screen, you know, and so trying to work in the animation over the green screen actors was something that we didn't have back in the day, or at least they never shot it. I did the shot with Roger Rabbit where he's driving in the car coming out of the tunnel, and he's driving in the car and it kind of spins around, and we find Benny the cab smashed up against a tree. That whole sequence I animated, and I remember my only real obstacle in that was making sure that my animation covered the guy who was actually driving the car. The guy who was driving the car was like, I don't know, he's a big, thick dude. So I had to make sure that at every aspect, the character's covered. So I had to pose Roger to where he's completely covering this character. That means I had to create elements of the drawing that made sure that he covered him the whole time. And he wasn't green screen, so it would just show up. So he wasn't just wiped out of the shot. Green screen neutralizes everything and wipes stuff out of the shot. So the pose I created was Roger just kind of chilling, you know, on the steering wheel, like driving, chilling, elbow out or something like that. And I had to draw it that way and tilt his head and draw it that way. So make sure that all the space here was really covering up, you know, this actor. That was some of the obstacles, but like on Space Jam, the green screen allowed us, you know, much more cleaner cover for all the animation that had to happen. And you can drop the BGs in and stuff like that. It just made it sort of a much more seamless mesh of the two mediums. And it was just on the cusp of, this was 95, 96. So I would say true technology of merging the two really took effect like maybe 3-4 years after that, really. So, but what was fun is that even in between, I worked on a lot of commercials that mixed live action and animation. Lots of commercials for like Fanta soda and Fruit Loops and stuff like that. I mean, I love working on commercials because for the most part, you know, you have it's a nice film discipline for one thing, because you have to tell a complete story in a short amount of time. So it teaches you a nice way to shorthand ideas. Little tricks of the trade that you kind of take with you, especially producing in the TV medium. Sometimes you have to learn how to shortcut ideas, but still be clear about what those ideas are. So you know, I worked in all facets of this animation medium, but I find a lot of pleasure mixing, you know, animation, live action with animation, because when it's believable, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in Space Jam, that was the first time I think I saw the kind of combination, other than in like commercials like you're talking about. I didn't really think about that prior, but yeah, when you saw them two interacting, playing basketball together, I was like, whoa. Like, that
was fun. That was fun to do. There was actually a couple shots that Pick of the director actually let me direct just the animated aspects of it. And so that was fun, just trying to, you know, mess around with how you think these monsters are going to fit with Michael. And then thankfully me knowing basketball, understanding how to anticipate how, you know, when Michael's on offense, how to anticipate the defense. I played basketball, so it's like, okay, I understand how to anticipate the defense, what kind of defense these guys will be playing, and now how can you exaggerate that whole thing to make it that much more dynamic and authentic. You know, I mean, being real and authentic in animation is sort of like, it's underrated, because it's hard for people to identify what they like about shots. One of the things that they can say is that felt real, but they can't necessarily articulate what it is. And realism doesn't necessarily mean there's realistic, you know, people around you, and the art direction is realistic. The realistic aspect of it is how it made you feel. Like you can relate to exactly what happened here. I can relate to what this character was doing when he was acting and relaying an emotion and stuff like that. That realism is what attracts people, and it's hard for people to describe it. They just say it felt real, and it just sits in the ether that way. I think as an animator, if you're sharp enough, you know what that is, that was real, that they responded to. It's either an authentic sense of movement, or an authentic sense of acting that resonated with your audience. Those are the elements of realism that really, that I think when you can bring an audience in that way, it makes everything more real around them. Therefore, it makes a 2D character feel very real to them. So when people say certain things about realism in animation, that's what I take from it.
Yeah, and I think especially with a film like Space Jam, where you have Michael Jordan, a basketball star, and it's, really pulling in basketball fans. I think fans of basketball really appreciate when you can actually tell that these characters know what they're doing by playing basketball, and it helps to have an animator that knows that authenticity.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's a authenticity it's an odd thing. I mean, I think we sense it all the time. You can look at certain live action movies, and let's just say, you can sense when certain elements or actors or when animation takes over. Because you know why? Because when it sticks out and it becomes unreal, you're like, that's fake, that's animated. When you have the ability to sort of hide all that and make everything feel real, the weight of a character, the way the acting is, and it suddenly seamlessly blends in, that's when you've done a successful job. Like, people don't necessarily, when you point to a character like Gollum, in Lord of the Rings, for example, people think that character's real just because of all the elements that actually came together to make that character live and breathe on the screen and feel like he's real enough to sit alongside, the actors in a lot of those shots. Well, but it's animated still. The character's animated because that's not real what's happening there. And all props to the animators for that. Because the animators know exactly what visual cues to pull off to make sure those characters feel real and authentic. So all props to the animator, and not a whole lot of props to Andy Serkis. I'm sorry, dude. It's the animators that actually do this.
He only did a small part, yeah.
He did a small part, dude. He just did a small part. But but think of some of your favorite, even horror movies, where you've got a monster running around. You can tell when all of a sudden it's animation, because all of a sudden maybe the weight distribution is not real. And all of a sudden he feels light, even though he's 7 feet tall. He feels much lighter than the other actor in the shot. It's because, you have to understand how weight is distributed and making sure that feels authentic and everything like that. So I like watching movies and try to pick out, okay, these are the CG animals and these are real animals in this movie, but that animal is CG because he's running around. And I remember, what was that sequence in, it was one End of the World movie, I forget, with Jake Gyllenhaal. He was being chased by 3 rabid dogs or something like that. And all those dogs felt odd to me. It was like, wow, the weight on these dogs are not even real. Like, all of a sudden it brought me out of the movie, because just the animation just did not feel as effective as if it were real rabid dogs chasing you in a movie. That's the skill of the animator. Like, skills of the animator, sometimes are underrated. I've seen some great stuff. When you look at the Avengers stuff, it's like, it's fantastic. The animators know what they're doing.
Yeah, it definitely sets apart some of the different studios or just different quality of films that you see. Yep. Just with animation.
No doubt.
Yeah. I have to talk about how you formed Jambalaya Studios and created the acclaimed Disney Channel show, The Proud Family. And
well, yeah, let's talk about that. So, that actually came out of the necessity of wanting to make a TV series. We were coming to the end of Space Jam, and I knew I was going on to Disney to do Tarzan. But in between that, right towards the end of Space Jam, I started developing the idea of doing The Proud Family. Just started to create these characters and just trying to write to these characters. I think the first character I probably created was Bébé, the little baby with the afro. And I was like, oh, he's funny looking. I never seen a show with this character before. And then Cece came next. It's like, okay, great, little twins. And then I did Oscar and Trudy, and then started writing little things about who these characters could be. And then realized that, okay, I've got the makings of something that could actually be a TV show. And at that time, you had sitcoms that were around, like The Simpsons, and I think Family Guy was just getting up and running. There was other shows that kind of experimented in the idea of the animated sitcom, the truest version of the animated sitcom playing in prime time. So, so once I did that, the co-founder of the studio, Tom Wilhite, who was a good friend of mine, we were like, hey, it'd be fun to kind of like, he asked me, so you got anything that you think you'd want to develop? And then when I had shown him this group of this family, like, it'd be fun to do like something that would actually be sort of a primetime answer to like The Simpsons or Family Guy. And so we were mulling over the idea. That was a great idea. I remember it. And he was like, well, what's the name? I was like, I don't have a name for him yet. And I was like, well, I had a pose of them as a family, like I'm taking like a family photo. And he says, that would make an interesting, proud family. It's like, he says, they're an interesting, proud family. I was like, that's what it is. It's a proud family. So it's kind of how just the genesis of everything kind of like started up. And then, so I remember pitching it around town. And I don't know if a whole lot of people know this, but initially we pitched it to Disney first, an early version of Disney Television we pitched it to. And this was 1997 or whatever, 98. And so at the time, I don't think they were really vibing the idea of listen, doing Black folks in animation was still a very tender topic in town, right? Nobody really knows how to approach these type of characters with the sense of accuracy. And then there's a lot of fear of like doing African-American characters, because if you don't have a lot of African-American animators, people who actually can help answer the bell to who those characters are, then people tend to back away from this. So, as I look behind me in the industry, it was like, well, there's nobody else back here that actually is, trying to really make this type of stuff happen either. So I just kind of put everything on my shoulders and just simply, took the idea to Nickelodeon. And Nickelodeon's like, it's fantastic. It's really fun. I get this. And Nickelodeon at the time was sort of, they were kind of ahead of the field in terms of just kind of like, crafting kids stuff. I mean, they had that variety show, I think, all that at the time. So they were kind of bouncing in sort of more, edgier content and stuff. And so they saw the idea. And so we made the pilot with Nickelodeon, and it was great. I mean, that's when we cast Tommy and Paula. And so the pilot turned out really great. I was happy with it. I'm still working at Disney at the time, and we're shopping around. I'm like, pilot's done. Let's see where, if they're going to do the show. And so Nickelodeon kind of sat on it for a while, sat on it and sat on it. And I think mainly because when, in TV, you test a lot of things, right? Kind of test stuff. You test things to death sometimes. But the problem was they were testing the show, and just it was a Black show. It was just straight up, it was a Black show. But they're testing it in very white areas in and around LA. So the response wasn't exactly what they were sort of looking for. We sort of aimed it, all the music that was in the show, the jokes, everything was sort of geared towards our culture. So if you're not so well embraced in the culture, then I understand how you might not understand certain things, certain character dynamics and stuff like that. So while they sat on it, I had found out that the Disney Channel, not Disney TV animation, Disney Channel, was ghosting all of the screenings at all these different places that they pop up. You screen it in Simi Valley, where a Black man got beat up really bad once upon a time. And then you screen it in Chatsworth, and you screen it in Reseda, all these places that, don't necessarily get the concept. Disney's in all those screenings. And so I got a phone call from one of the Disney execs say, hey, so what's going on with that Proud Family thing? I was like, well, Nickelodeon's still kind of hanging on, trying to figure out what they want to do. Says, well, listen, if they don't want to do it, bring it over here. So I was like, you do it? Like, yeah, we'll do it. So we waited for the next out at Disney in our contract, and then just simply walked it across the street, bought it back, walked it across the street to Disney Channel. At that point, they were like, this is great. How do you want to do this? They had some writers that they put in front of me, and I was like, well, no, I don't think this is going to be written in the most traditional animation sense. It has to be truly a sitcom. So that's where I reached out to Ralph Farquhar. And I remember that initial breakfast with him, and he was like, I talked for a while. I was a big fan of Moesha, the Parkers, and he goes all the way back to shows like Happy Days. He was one of the execs on Married with Children. Perfect style of writing that I thought would be necessary for the show. So I remember sitting there with Ralph and kind of showed him some of the characters. I hadn't shown him the pilot yet. I remember showing him the characters and just kind of written synopsis for the characters. Like immediately, he's like, I get it. And he was like, his first thing was like, hey, he just pulled me off the golf course, so this better be something good. I remember that. So he vibed with it, and I was like, perfect. So he had a great taste for it. He had great, he got it, he got the temperature of it. And so once Disney Channel realized that, wow, he brought in a big fish to write this show, then that's when they said, okay, good, let's do it. So that was kind of the genesis of the Proud Family. So to answer your question, so when we finally got the go, it was like, okay, well then we want to do this in-house. And we were like, no, I got my own studio actually. At that point, I just sort of crafted a different wing off of Hyperion Animation to create the pilot for the show when we were producing it, just the pilot for Nickelodeon. So we thought, it would just be a smart idea for us to be off campus for one thing, and produce this and create a real studio where I can be in charge of who I bring in to produce the show. That was mainly the thing. I wanted to make sure that you kind of handpick this and make sure you bring in the right type of people to make a show like this. So that's how Jambalaya was born, really. It's really knowing that if I'm under the roof of someplace else, I won't be able to make and hire and bring in and play the producer, and I'm playing the producer role for the first time. Really sort of produce this in a way that I feel like is the best way to make the show. So that's how that was born. And then, you find out running a studio is a lot of hard work. I just want to draw and make a show. I'm not trying to manage this place, you know what I mean? So you put people in place that actually can do that. It's tiring, man. All the folks that I know that actually run studios, man, it can be kind of tiring, but make it happen. It was good. It's a good experience.
Yeah, it sounds definitely very rewarding and a really awesome opportunity to build more diverse teams because, like you said, there really wasn't a lot of diversity in animation itself. So it's, the more that at least there's more creators in the world that are really thinking about it and crafting teams that way. How did you go about crafting your teams, especially in those early studio days?
Well, I mean, I think for one, it's like, I've been in business long enough to where I've gained some relationships with a lot of artists that are really great. So in most cases, it's like, listen, our show, it was a low budget show. So I had to rely a lot on the relationships that you craft to convince artists to kind of come work on this. The flip side of it too is that, hey, the goal behind the show is to be as funny as one of your favorite, sitcoms. But there was always this sort of unwritten rule in animation primetime sitcoms. Like, for whatever reason, the show had to, as funny as it is, had to look like crap. It's like, I don't want my show to look bad. I mean, I kind of think that there's a fun balance in the world to be had. So I was coming from it. The point of view I was coming from was from an artistic aesthetic that spoke to a lot of my fellow artists. They were like, okay, great. We get the material, very different material, funny stuff. I can relate to it. But visually, you're doing something that sort of raises the game in terms of sitcom animation. So I think you put those two ingredients together, and I started to track artists that were veterans, but also finding new talent, I think, was the key too. So, I kind of I like using sports analogy, in a lot of ways. So to me, it was like being a general manager and trying to craft a great basketball team, picking all the spots, who's going to fill this spot, who's going to be a forward, who's going to be a point guard, and say, okay, this is the young kid, he's got a lot of skills, he doesn't know everything yet, but let's bring him aboard, we can train him. It's like baseball. It's like, it's like, okay, I'm gonna give this kid a break, because I see he brings a big bat to the game, you know what I mean? But no one's ever tested his bat. He always sits on the bench every place he goes. I'm gonna give this kid kind of a bigger role and watch him respond. That analogy for me kind of worked, and also it gained the respect of artists who weren't necessarily being looked at in the same way at other places that they worked for. I mean, sometimes once you get put into, you get hired at a certain position in a studio, they will always look at you as this person, even if you perform it well. You have to know people to kind of move up the ladder in a lot of ways. Talent is always first and foremost in this business, but there's a buddy system. You know what I'm saying? And I think just like anything, but you as long as you recognize talent and you help nurture talent, that's how this industry grows. So I had to make sure that the people that I brought in, that I had to make sure that I helped pull them up. So I'm an artist. So I think you know, it's about, I think you show by example. So a lot of the artists in studio, I'm getting my elbows dirty with the guy. So I'm jumping in on character design and why certain things have to be this way. And if we simplify it here, we'll be able to move through the produce, you know, the proper way, but also you want to still make sure that, you know, when I'm talking basic stuff with artists, like, hey man, straights against curves, and make sure there's certain appeal in the character design, and don't give me a character that's just like straight up and down. Really give me some rhythm to these characters and stuff. You know, really design these characters from a real place, not just from, you know, a plastic place that you've seen before. Don't do the stuff that you've seen before, you know? So things like that artists respond to, as opposed to, this sucks, tearing up paper and, you know, screaming down an artist in his throat and, you know, go back to your ass. Like, nobody responds to that. I think it's really about, you know, sort of like, answering their artistic spirit, speaking to their inner artistic id. And I think that they then will speak back to you respectfully, and we sort of gain a nice rapport that way. And I think that that kind of helps elevate the craft in terms of what we're trying to do. So I think they really responded to the artist side of how you make these things, because we've been in systems where we just are answering to a producer who probably don't know anything. I found out, I was working on one show, and I found out my producer, and I'm taking notes from this guy, and I'm questioning, scratching my head about, I don't know if this producer is producer. So he's kind of, I had to answer to him, and he's giving me notes that I'm not quite understanding, but I'm still trying to be respectful and kind of understand what all this is, and banging my head. And I'm like, no, let me hang out with this guy for a little while, try to get to know who he is. So we go out one night and we have a couple drinks. And I remember he must have been just, you know, just slushed enough to tell me, hey man, you know, it's the best job I ever had. Dude, I just want to let you know, man, 2 months ago, I was assembling parts on a conveyor belt for like Lockheed. And I was like, seriously? Like, really? You know, I was like, this is my producer, a guy who wasn't even in this business not even 2 months ago. He is a producer. I'm taking notes from this guy. And this guy was dropping nuts and bolts on a runway at an airport. Like, come on, man, come on. So I knew right away, cronyism, in effect, you know, but I realized that the reason why I just wasn't responding to his notes, because he just wasn't an artist. He didn't understand the medium, you know, and listen, it takes a lot sometimes to be in a meeting, creative meeting especially, and not understand what's going on and say that. I don't quite get this, so I'm gonna let you guys kind of handle this. As opposed to being the loudest person in the room and you don't know nothing, you know? So I realized that, you know, okay, well, listen, first that told me, okay, I can produce. Then if this guy's producing, then I certainly know how to produce a TV show. But at the same time, I knew that artists will respond to artists first and foremost, people who respect and understand the medium. So, you know, that was one of the reasons why I kind of created Jambalaya and did it under that roof, because I knew I could get artists to respond to artists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely remember even watching The Proud Family and thinking, like when I was younger, that was the first time that I noticed like different character animation, that like the Gross sisters were blue, and that like a lot of thought went into this particular, you know, cartoon or animated cartoon.
Gross sisters were actually ashy, just as an FYI. They're blue, they're gray, actually blue. And that was one of the other notes with Disney, is that they didn't quite understand what ashy was in the Black community. It's like, ashy, you get ashy, man. I got to lotion down every morning before I leave the house. So ashy is a real thing. And I'm glad that they actually did not get that until we were actually like maybe 7, 8 episodes in. Because if they didn't get that, they probably would have said, well, no, you know, we don't think we don't want to disrespect all the ashy people of the world. So we probably should not have these characters in the show. So yes, but your point is well taken. It's like we were creating a world where characters could actually be blue and still be believable.
Yeah, that it definitely set apart from other animated shows that, you know, maybe the thought wasn't put into it as much with the animation style, that the show had a style. But you know, you had worked in Walt Disney feature animation, you know, did you enjoy working on TV or movies kind of more once you started working with The Proud Family?
Both, actually. Both give me a certain amount of satisfaction. I think, I was sort of, born and raised in this business to be an animator. So in essence, you're the actor with the pencil or the stylist, if you will. Um, but uh, and so just the idea of characters performing was something that I've always was sort of drawn to, creating characters that actually can give you really great performances, on screen. That's what drives me as an animator. Even, some of the best 3D films, some of the best 3D animators, guys who can really give you that great emotion on the screen with simple, subtle acting, which is hard to pull off from a hand-drawn point of view. There's very few animators who can be as subtle as 3D animation allows an animator to be. And your draftsmanship is going to determine that at the end of the day, how well you can place those subtleties, those believable subtleties, and acting nuances on a character. And those are the things that was a challenge for me. And I just really wanted to answer that bell every time I was getting shots. So I love both. I mean, I can truly dive into both. I mean, getting a chance to do Dr. Facilier, for example, was a dream, because it's a Disney villain. It's that's the sweetest role in any film. Forget what they say about the heroines, it's yeah, Belle, whatever, Snow White, all right, whatever. I think people would want to animate the witch in Snow White, because that's where the juicy characterizations come from. I'd much rather animate Cruella de Vil, because she's the fun character. I love what they did on Roger and even the Dalmatians and everything. Cruella de Vil's the character. Madame Medusa is the character that you want to go for in the rest of it. So the villain is always the best, hookup, so to speak. So animating on a Disney film, on a feature, is very satisfying and really fun to do.
Yeah, you mentioned Dr. Facilier, and he really is a very unique and terrifying villain in any Disney film. What were some influences for that particular character?
Wow. Man. Well, when we first started approaching Dr. Facilier, I remember having a series of sketches that were just very early versions of how the directors kind of see the character. I think they were looking at Baron Samedi, who's this big voodoo doctor down south and stuff like that. A lot of the earlier drawings felt very evil in that sense. From an acting standpoint, when I got into really kind of designing the character, I started thinking of Cab Calloway. Well, for you young people, Cab Calloway did this song called Minnie the Moocher. Minnie the Moocher, you pull that up on YouTube, you'll see this guy in a big zoot suit singing a song, Minnie the Moocher, very funny guy. I wanted him to have these sort of really great suave moves about him and stuff, right? Keith David did an amazing vocal performance. So I remember when we started doing some early designs, and I remember seeing some early video footage of just his audition, and he had the really cool expressions that he would get when he would sort of lean into the vocalization. So I captured a little of that, a little Sam Jackson, and then you mix that in with some of the moves of Usher, and he was an amalgamation of lots of different, characters, I thought, that hadn't really had their time on the big screen in an animated form, before. So I was pulling from a pot of a lot of live action reference. And then from an animation standpoint, I love Captain Hook, Peter Pan, right? I mean, foppish villain who's silly and can be very loony, but very sinister at the same time. Dude had a hook and he wasn't, afraid to use it, right? So he'd get upset, blast that Peter Pan, and he would just get all this fire. It's like you want a character to be both. So I took a lot of Captain Hook, and I one interview, I think I mentioned something about him being, the love child of Captain Hook and Cruella de Vil, if you will, right? That's Dr. Facilier for sure.
I love that kind of combination of all of the live action references, but Cruella and Captain Hook. I can't see it.
Kind of can't get that out of your brain now, can you? So sorry.
No, it just adds. And For our last question, and then we'll pass it off to our audience Q&A, have to mention, this year Hair Love won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short.
That's
Amazing.
right. Yay!
How did you become involved in the project and, the success of it?
Wow. Yeah. Well, Hair Love, if you remember, was a Kickstarter. That's how it started. I mean, it was the brainchild of Matthew Cherry, ex-NFL player who's trying to find his way into the animation medium, had a story to tell, and it was a cute story. So he started the Kickstarter, and the book was kind of, if I remember right, was the reward along the way for the Kickstarter, right? Which is odd.
Yeah.
So then once I think he was asking for a meager amount to produce a short, and he ended up getting like maybe 4 or 5 times that amount. And so that's when all of social media kind of was looking at this and saying, hey, make a short, make a short, make a short, make a short. Make the short, make the short. Because, sometimes Kickstarters, people just take the money and run, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, Matthew, a man of integrity, decided to follow through on this and make this short. So at that point, they really started crafting the concept of making the short. And they went through a few iterations from a story standpoint. I think at that time, Matthew was he comes from a live action standpoint, so he's learning a lot about what it takes to direct animated film. So he brought in Everett, my dude, Mr. Scribbles on Twitter. You guys go follow him, please. And so him and Everett were kind of just like crafting this short along the way. And so as they got close to really kind of locking down the story, I think they were just kind of like eyeballing someone who actually can sort of, I don't think Everett was really sort of, a hand-drawn animation guy. So once the decision was decided to make it hand-drawn, that's when I got the call, basically. So as I jumped in, I, kind of closed a couple of story puzzle pieces. It was like, fantastic, this works now. And then, so now we're off to the races. So that's when I got involved. It took us when I got involved, it was about maybe, I'd say maybe 8 to 10 months before we were actually finished, something like that. So it was a very short schedule, and jumped in, did some character design, just kind of made everything animation friendly, in the beginning, and then jumped into the animation. We all jumped in because we just thought it was a really, really sort of fun, sincere story that features characters of color in a really great light. And we thought we needed that in this time. So a lot of people jumped in purely on the love of it all, right? So, I mean, as you see the list of credits in that, people who contributed is a huge list, and people really sincerely were behind the film. So to be, in front of it, making sure that the ship hit the dock properly, it was an honor. So, and it was fun. So he made it fun, and we weren't going in expecting any kind of award or anything like that. And so it was surprising to get the nomination, considering that, we weren't even nominated for an Annie Award. I don't, so right away we were sort of like, I don't think hopes are really high for this. People love it, obviously. And I think, well, what really helped us, I think, is certainly when it was, in front of Angry Birds. A lot of people didn't see Angry Birds. Great movie, by the way. If you guys haven't seen Angry Birds 2, hysterical. It is truly hysterical. I was crying, laughing at a couple gags there. It was pretty funny. And I'm not an easy laugh in animation from an animation standpoint. So, but it's very funny. And, but what really opened up the envelope for that was when they released it on YouTube, and it made it accessible for people who normally don't go see an animated film to see this on YouTube. People crawl YouTube every day. So then it just opened up to an entirely different audience, and it got popular. And, at the end of the day, let's just be honest, animation, if I'm just going to be totally honest, animation, when it comes to the shorts, is a popularity contest, really. That's what it comes down to. It's how accessible these shorts are to the voters in the Academy. So I think when it reached YouTube, a lot of Academy members, watch YouTube just like the common folk, right? And I think that it gained a lot of proper momentum through social media and through YouTube. So it was a perfect thing for it. And also just timing. It was the perfect time for a short like that. and the short is really great, and for all the right reasons. So yeah, we were surprised to be nominated. We were shocked to win it. So it was a very fun and interesting night.
Yeah, definitely. I remember this even before it got nominated for the Oscars, but kind of the social discourse around that short when it first kind of hit YouTube. And I feel like there would have been riots in the streets if it didn't win, because it definitely deserved it.
Well, the thing is with animated shorts, when was the last time you saw one? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, even to the purest of animation fans, it's kind of hard to find animated shorts. I mean, I'm a member of the Academy, so the shorts come to me, but I don't know where to find them unless they're hooked on top of a Pixar short, or, it's a Pixar movie in the theaters, or a Disney movie or whatever. Where else are you going to see some really great animated shorts? A bit foreign shorts. I mean, there's some great foreign films shorts that are out there that you don't get a chance to see them out here in the States as much because they aren't attached to your mainstream films or anything like that. And, you don't have the budget to promote them the way you know what to do. So that's why I say it becomes a popularity contest at some point, just like anything. But you want to be able to, look at it and say, okay, even though this was all the right people saw this, and the short actually has enough to it to where I can agree that it deserved the award. So.
Yep, I agree. Well, now it's time to go to our audience Q&A. So Tracy, go
What's up, audience? Give it to me.
All right, our first question is from Tammy, who asks, due to the collaborative nature of the animation process, it seems that many jobs overlap. Could you describe how the role of supervising animator differs from a character design artist or visual development artist?
Okay, so the order of things will be visual development first, and then character design may dove into viz dev, because viz dev means lots of things, meaning visual development. So visual development is kind of the inspiration for everything. Visual development starts with, hey, I have an idea, and now I'm just going to start to visually develop this world, these characters. Very rough, but really it's about capturing the essence, the moments of whatever your idea is. That's visual development. Some people think visual development is just, oh, lots of pretty pictures. Let me draw this Mary Blair style, and it's going to be really nice. It's like, well, no, not really. I think that there's a certain, while there's a certain aesthetic to visual development, I think that visual development in its most successful form inspires the next level of the film. So in essence, it's like, whereas the writing will inspire the visual development, and then that circle goes right back to inspiring the writing again. And then it goes right back into visual development. We're creating moments off the writing, really, real tentpole moments in your film that are created in visual development. It's not just character. It's lots of times really figuring out the world in visual development too. It's you thinking in its broadest form of what this idea, this film, this TV show is. And you're sort of like bringing that down to the essence, the core of finding, those key moments in your film or your show that helps define what this movie, what this show is all about. That's really the best form of visual development. And then that then will inspire the writing. And then what happens is also the visual development will also inspire the character design. So now you've got characters here that are actually telling the story, but how can you refine those characters to kind of give you the true essence of who your characters are that are telling the story? That's where character design comes in. Someone who can take the roughest idea, because when you get into visual development, you work with a lot of different artists also. It's not just one person in biz dev, it's 8 or 9 people in biz dev. And how can you take all those ideas in visual development and pull it into a character that is basically saying all the things that the visual development is telling it to say, along with the writing. So the character designer is really key in sort of providing the info to the animator, who now has to take this character design and act it out. So I always describe it as sort of like the character designer is the one who's designing the race car, and the animator is the one who's driving that race car, right, to the finish line. That's the driver. That's the person who needs a great car to win the race, right? Because if you got a clunky car, you give a clunky car to a great animator, he ain't gonna finish the race right, because he's being stifled by this really horrible ass character design. Sorry, excuse my French, I'm trying to be cool here. It's Disney. So we're recording this and probably a lot of kids watching. So really, I think of it like that. I think of it like, you know, the character designer is the one who is really giving the animator, because sometimes a really great character design can take a really mediocre animator and raise him up because the design is so great. I mean, I think that's what Milt Kahl's designs were doing back in, you know, when he was really, you know, designing incredible characters, you know, between the eras of like, you know, Peter Pan all the way up through, you know, Rescuers Down Under, or Rescuers, I'm sorry. Rescuers, like, you know, when you think about the height for me of Milt Kahl in his fullest form is like in the 60s when he did 101 Dalmatians and Robin Hood, you know, all these really, you know, Sword and Stone, you know, I mean, there was his design, his sense of design is you know, you can't match it. And I think you give those designs to an animator just reasonably worth his salt, he'll be able to understand how these designs work and how to really elevate his game just based on the designs that are given to him. You know, so because believe me, I mean, I love animation and I think I'm a very good animator, but if you give me a crappy design, it's gonna be tough to get out of it, get around it, and get into it. So so yeah, the designer is really key to how an animator performs. That's the order: Viz Dev, character design, animator.
To kind of piggyback off of that, it seems like you kind of work in all three. Is that right?
Yes. Well, you learn as an animator, so now how those areas dovetail into each other is like, yeah, you can design the car and drive it because you kind of know what's necessary when it's time to design the car. So, or you can put all the parts on the table and give it to somebody who draws better than you to design it, to finish the design. So yeah, but you, as an animator, you realize, okay, this design needs some tweaking. You know, let me animate a few things and figure out what's wrong with this. So when you do that, you can figure out what you're lacking, you know, from the small things to how big you draw the hands, or maybe his fingers should be stubbier or whatever. You're designing positions for his hands to how the face is put together and what gives you, what facial elements, whether eyes close together, far apart, gives you the best elements to create the best expressions and stuff like that. You know, mouth shapes, things like that, shapes as a whole, how the character's face is shaped and stuff like that. Things like that, you kind of, as an animator, you can answer from a character design standpoint. So yes, I design characters thinking about the animator, how they're going to actually handle it. And from the biz dev standpoint is the global aspect of your idea. So yeah, you have to be able to create the world, create the moments in your world that's necessary to help tell your story. And then you start to now section it off after that. So yeah, I've had hands in all three. And it's good to have the knowledge in all three. And I think you have to have the draftsmanship to have the knowledge in all three also.
Thanks for laying all that out. I really liked that analogy. It's really
cool.
All right, our next question is from Ward, who asks, a lot of the folks appearing here being Happily Ever After Hours, are CalArts alum. Can you talk some about the learning environment there and what it was like to go to school there and some of your fellow alumni?
Whoop, whoop, CalArts in the house, whoop, whoop. CalArts back then, I mean, you know, I'm older now. The CalArts back then, I mean, we were still in the hand-drawn era. So, I mean, it was great because we were being taught by guys who actually worked on those films back in the day. So, like, you know, my design teacher was this guy named T. He. So, go through the Disney catalog and find out who T. He is. He's legendary in the annals of Disney. He was our character design teacher. He taught us lots of things, lots of different design cues and what makes a great design in animation and stuff like that. Our life drawing teacher was this guy, Elmer Plummer, another Disney legend. Taught us what and why of life drawing. Life drawing was something I struggled with in college for sure. But he broke it down to elements that we can all sort of understand and digest. Our overall animation teacher was Jack Hanna, not the zoologist Jack Hanna. This Jack Hanna was the guy who directed most of those Donald Duck shorts of the 40s. You know, he taught us timing. He taught us, you know, how to animate basically. He would take scenes at Xerox, we'd flip it, from you know, any of the Disney shorts, probably some of his shorts. And then he would take all the in-betweens out. And so now we're just left with the poses, and then we'd have to animate ourselves from the A to Z of the poses. It was a great exercise because then what you do is you shoot your drawings and compare it to, you know, some of the legendary guys who actually did the shot and see how you perform. So that was your test. So once you learn the bones of animation, these are guys who are veterans who've done it, you know, in the beginning. So we felt very fortunate, you know, to be at CalArts during that time, learning, you know, from the masters of the craft. So it was very different, you know, because now the medium has changed so much to where back then all those elements still really translate to the medium. I always found out that the best 3D animators are guys who really understand the 2D aesthetic and how that works and can give all that charm from a 2D standpoint and apply it to the 3D world. Those are the animators who kind of get what the medium is. They approach it from the right spirit place. So so when I was at CalArts back in the day, that's kind of where it just followed the 2D craft, the 2D road. And, you know, it's like you make a film at the end of the year. I think, like, you know, how long it is up to you. But like normally our films are like maybe 2 minutes tops because that's all you can really handle through the year. CalArts is like a school that from top to bottom, the discipline was all about animation. Unlike going to a major university where, you know, animation is sort of like an elective, so to speak, and you're working on it, you know, whatever, however many hours a week, 4, 5, 6 hours a week. Animation was, that's where I learned how to do an all-nighter, was at CalArts, because, you know, when it comes time to trying to finish a film, you don't go to sleep. Ain't no sleep. Sleep is for the weak when you're trying to finish your film at CalArts. So, so that's when, you know, learning and to be completely and totally just engulfed in the medium 24/7, I thought was a great way to learn this medium. It was the perfect tool for me because, you know, I mean, certainly, you know, I love math and science, but I love animation much more than that. So it was good to just kind of just be enveloped in animation 24/7. And you're there with students who actually have that same love for the medium from around the world. So, you know, you think you're the only one there who actually kind of knows your stuff. And then when I realized when I got there at CalArts, man, I was like, we had 33 students our freshman year. And I think if I were just to rank the talent, I was probably number 30, 31 out of 33. So I didn't really think too highly of myself when I was there. But it was great because I learned from a lot of really talented guys who were there. And they were open to, you know, they were open book. They would tell you stuff, teach you stuff that you didn't know, and vice versa. So it was a great collaborative kind of environment at CalArts.
Yeah, everything I've heard about CalArts, like we said earlier, almost everyone we've had on here were CalArts grads.
Oh,
and,
that's funny. Yeah, Kevin Lima was a year below me. I remember that. So was Brenda. So my classmates were guys like Chris Sanders, who went on to direct How to Train Your Dragon. Kelly Asbury did Smurfs and lots of stuff over DreamWorks. Rob Minkoff, who did Lion King. These guys sit, you know, in front of, on the side of, and behind me. So we were all sort of in it all at the same time, you know, really learning and embracing this medium. We had a lot of great students that went on to do really great stuff around us at the time. We didn't know. We're just there kind of, you know, learning and soaking it up all at the same time. And everybody went on to greatness. It's amazing.
It really seems like it. It must have been so inspiring too, to be around so many people that are that passionate and talented.
Yeah, it was, sometimes it was intimidating. Sometimes it was really, you know, really fun and humbling. And when you got to know the guys, it was really cool.
And we found throughout these happily ever after hours, a lot of our speakers were roommates at CalArts or like best friends, blah, blah. Everyone's
yeah, it's funny. Yeah, we talk about the CalArts stuff a lot, but it's true. Yeah, a lot of guys really, we wouldn't have guessed that we would have been sort of kind of those guys, especially cornerstones, and really sort of bringing, you know, the medium back to life. Because when we came into the business, man, Disney was like, they almost closed shop. And then all of a sudden, you know, you had, you know, the guys breaking into the business, being able to lead films, getting the opportunity to do stuff and really answering the call. So it really helped really give a nice injection of creativity in the medium.
Definitely. And I just want to do a quick time check. We're going a little bit long. Is that okay? Do you have an extra 10 minutes?
I'm good, man. Let's just do this. Let's just get all the questions out. I got all this is Rona. You know, I can't sleep. What the heck? What am I gonna do? Go to sleep right now? Can't sleep. Rona tells me when to sleep. So Rona ain't said nothing yet. So Rona will just knock me out. So if I'm just like this, Rona told me to go to sleep. But until that happens, man, let's just do this. Let's do it.
All right. Our next question is from Alicia, who asks, what is your advice for young Black artists wanting to pursue a career in animation?
I mean, I'll just say go for it. I mean, at this point, it's really about, I would say it's about your Blackness, and it's not about your Blackness at the same time. It's really about your talent first, but your talent breathe through. So really like make sure that your chops are sharpened and everything, because what's going to happen is when you get involved in a production, who you are is going to be. I'm reliant on that as a producer. You know, it's like I want you to inform these characters. I want you to inform the stories that we're telling. That's where your culture comes into play, no matter who you are. But like we're talking about that right now in the latest Proud Family. It's like the way I like to run a show is like everybody counts. So, you know, I'm in a meeting and we're talking about just the designs of La Cienaga's home, and you know, and I'm like, hey, you know what? We need to start hanging some really culturally influenced paintings in her home. So what's up? And folks be like, let me contribute to that. I know a great artist, you know, of Latin culture, and we can blah blah blah. Let's invest in this art. This comes from a person from production who's not an artist, but they're invested in the show to make it as authentic as possible. And my job as a producer is to listen for the most part, you know. So every voice counts. And so as an artist, that's why I say this is where your Blackness will count, because it will count on a production. You're trying to inform things that maybe a lot of people don't necessarily know about, all the nuances of certain characterizations and stuff. But at the same time, your talent is where that's where you hone it to a place to where you become a talented artist that actually can sit at the table and now make those ideas happen. So as an artist, it's really about you understanding and studying the medium and getting as good as you can get. But at the same time, get on a production and understand all the things that are necessary to make your dream happen.
And do you think the industry has changed in that regard since you started versus now?
Sure. I think, you know, because the times will dictate what your audiences are looking for, right? So if you're talking about now in the environment that we're in this sort of real polarizing world that we live in right now, everyone is fighting for their identity. And I think, you know, for kids growing up, they want to see their identity on the screen, right? I wanted to see it as a kid too, but there wasn't enough people that were making these things that could inform that on the screen. So now you've got much more artists. Got many more artists from around the world who actually participate in this medium now. So, and now they're getting much bolder and they're expressing themselves, and you're starting to see it more on screen. So now you're starting to see representation that you really hadn't seen before on the screen now. And I'm saying this is the time where you really start to take shape and take advantage of that. I mean, you see a lot of films now that, from an animation standpoint, you know, they kind of get clowned when they don't look like the world. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I want to go to a movie and see a movie that looks like the world that I live in after I step out of this movie, right? So, you know, you as an artist have to be aware of that now. So if you've worked on all these films where you didn't necessarily have that responsibility back in the 90s, wasn't thinking that way back in 2000s, now you're forced to think that way as an audience, as an artist. So, because you still want people to come to your movies. So now you're forced to think that way. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to think about how inclusive, you know, your stories can be to start to relate to an audience that's ever changing. So as an artist, you have to learn to adapt. If you don't adapt, you're going to die as an artist in this business. So understand, listen, look what's around you. And as an artist, that's what you paint. That's what you use as your canvas. So I think I answered that question, right? I don't know. I forget what the question is now, but I think I'm answering it. I think. Okay.
Great.
If I don't, just call me on it.
No, I think you did.
Oh, someone said thank you for answering my question. Okay, good. Gotcha. All good.
Great. All right. Our next question is from Aaron, who asks, what was it like being able to tell stories through characters of color like Pacha and the Proud Family, and where did the inspiration for these characters come from?
Well, I mean, I think, in terms of the Proud Family, it was really, for me, it was like time to do something that can at least make me interested in working on an animated show. Like I had trudged through a lot of projects that I couldn't completely and totally identify with from a character perspective. So I just worked on technique. You see what I mean? It's like the difference is, okay, this obviously is not a character that I grew up with or that I know. So let me just make sure I polish up my chops on this character. I can still give to this character, just from a toolkit, get my skills up and stuff like that, right? And then once I got there and got informed, then I really was interested in trying to really create characters that I thought I could really answer the bell to and help really sort of style and craft a skill set. So for me, it felt good to finally create characters that I thought, my instinct told me that you can do this. Like, that's what my instinct used to always tell me. You can do this. You can take this character to the screen if you really wanted to. That was always the instinct that sat inside of me. So to get a chance to do that with the Proud Family, I think is cool. Pacha is like, it is that character where it's like, okay, good, this is this character of color. And you start to understand and do your research. No matter who the character is, you start to do your research on a culture and how a culture may act or react to certain things, and trying to give those nuances and performances that give it that sense of authenticity. That's all. So with Pacha, it was really about, I want to do some fun stuff with this character, even though he's a character that is a sidekick. He's a straight man in this movie. You still have to do straight man stuff. You still just don't stand straight up in the screen, and then just go into acting when your line is called for. You know what I mean? You have to think about everything that happened before, everything that's going to happen after, and craft your performance to have that thread. You know what I mean? So now you've got a character thread that is believable. So when the character actually opens up his mouth to talk and he says whatever he says, you believe it because you planted those seeds, 15 minutes ago in this character in this movie. So if you think like that, it allows you as an actor to really make the role fun for you and authentic at the same time. That's where your research comes in. So, and that's where, from an animation standpoint, you start to practice and stuff like that, and write stuff down, stuff like that you want to write down. It's like, okay, in, sequence 12, scene 1, my character was feeling this, but now in this sequence, he's going to be feeling this. So I got to make sure that I create this thread. So when we get to there, and that character has a smile on his face, when we start the shot, it's not, oh, that's weird, character got a smile on his face. He's not supposed to be feeling that because he felt that earlier, but now in this point in the movie, what's he smiling for? Things like that are the things that you think about, because as an animator, you are an actor. You have to think about your character from an actor's perspective. And and then that's where that's where my culture comes in. So I'll give a lot of what my culture is to an animated character, regardless of what color he is. I will make him, the hippest white guy, the hippest white character, or the hippest Latin character in the show. It don't matter to me. I'll give him, whatever swagger that I feel like I can give a character. I will drop my swag into that character. So.
Yeah, I feel like so much of that acting comes through to the point, like if you're someone who really knows animation well, you can tell, which of the 9 old men animated which parts of which scenes. I can't do this, but I know animators who can.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
And it's like the taste test.
Yeah.
That's Pepsi. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's ginger ale right there. That's good. Yeah.
All right. Our next question is from Brian, who says, "Hi, Bruce. I'm so thrilled you came to do this show. One film that you worked on that hasn't been discussed tonight is Cats Don't Dance with Turner and Warner's. You're credited as a character designer. Can you talk a bit more about your experience on this brilliant and underrated film?"
Oh, that's pretty funny. Am I credited on that as a character designer? I think that the director of that movie, Mark Dindal, does not give himself enough credit for the stuff that he did on that movie. I've known Mark for a long time, and I knew Mark as an effects artist. So when I was coming up through Disney, he was a special effects artist, which, you know, the guy who's responsible for, you know, smoke and fire and water and lightning bolts and all this stuff, right? All non-character stuff. And so I remember when I knew Mark Dindal was directing Cats Don't Dance. I always liked Mark. I thought he was a great, you know, fun guy, really, you know, was a great sense of humor and a good sense of film knowledge, everything. I always liked Mark. And so I remember when I just finished Page Master, we were like rolling on to Cats Don't Dance, all of a sudden into my office, you know, here's model sheets. Mark wants you to do Danny, do some prep animation for Danny. I'm like, okay, cool. I have these model sheets. I'm like, hey, model sheets pretty cool. Like, damn, like, wow. Who did these models, dude? And it was like, oh, these are Mark's. I'm like, these are Mark's. These are Mark's models. And I started looking at these other drawings. All the other characters, Darla and Darla Dimple and then her sidekick and I forget the female lead in the movie, I forget. But he had done all these really great designs. Like he did the bones of these designs, like a really rough drawing. And maybe somebody can hunt them down or something. They're probably in the Disney archive, you know, thing, whatever. Oh, no, they wouldn't be in Disney archive because it was a Turner film. And who knows what Turner did with their animated gems. But no, that was all Mark, man. If I did designs on it, I was following through with a lot of Mark Dindal ideas that were pretty much all fleshed out, already there for the most part. I think sometimes you get credit for character designs, like I mentioned, as you start answering the questions of how these characters may get around, and you start subtly jumping into things that worked in the test and things that didn't work. But I would say Mark is the one who gave me the car. Mark gave me a car. I was like, damn, it's a nice car. Who designed this car? What, Mark? It's a Maserati. I didn't know Mark makes Maseratis. I didn't know that. Let me get in and drive this. So I have to give all credit to Mark Dindal to that.
Great. There's a lot of people that are excited in the chat, so it has quite the following. All right. I think this will probably be our last question, unfortunately. But Tiffany asks, where do you find new writing talent? I was so thrilled to learn about the Proud Family reboot, but have yet to figure out how to join a writing team.
Wow. Well, you know, when that was Ralph's thing. So one of the things that I really learned how to do also as a producer, and, you know, created a show and stuff like that, that's fine. But I've learned as a producer to let people do their jobs, right? It's like, that's important. I don't try to put my hands over everything. I don't try to micromanage, so to speak, right? So when it came down to writing, really it's like, okay, Ralph and I are complete and total sync in terms of what we're gonna do this version of the show. You know, we get together, we smash ideas, we laugh about a lot of stuff. We got to tell this story, Oh my gosh, yes. This story, absolutely. We're laughing about stuff, and it's like, okay, great. Then we start thinking about writers who actually sort of fit the personality of what we're after. And then after that, I jump off the reins. I mean, like, you know, for me, if you're trying to aspire to write in this business, you know, the only thing that I would say is don't think about that you're writing for animation. Because I wouldn't be looking for you if you're saying I have a great animated script. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for really a fun writer who actually can write, you know, their version of something like The Office. Those are real characters, really funny stuff. You know, it's like, it's not animated, it's just real character stuff with real stories that you can relate to, that is just really funny. Those are the things that I would point to, and then animation will find you, you know, but always write from the heart, write the truth. Don't think about the medium that you're writing in, because the medium will always adapt to whatever it is. And just be great, be fun, be prepared to write a lot as a writer, just like as an artist, as an animator, man. It's like I try to tell people, it's like for every drawing that you see on the screen for Facilier, there's about 8 or 9 drawings that didn't get to the screen. You know what I'm saying? So, and you think about that percentage, that's an awful percentage. You know, 1 for 8, that's, if this were baseball and I hit the ball once every 8 times I come to the plate, what is that? I'm batting like under 200. That's awful. So that's not all-star numbers. But the point being is that I didn't stop coming to the plate and swinging. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to keep swinging, to find that perfect pitch to knock it out the park. So as a writer, it's still the same mentality. It's like you're going to write and write, and a lot of your drafts are going to be awful, and you got to be okay with that, because from that point, it's just going to get better. Character's going to get better. Things are going to become truer, clearer, and real to you. And it's a fall in your face medium, lots of times, but you know it when you arrive. But you got to do it a lot. I know in this age, if I'm talking to a lot of young people here, in this age of instant gratification, it's not about you writing your first script and hitting me up on Twitter saying, "Hey man, I got a great idea for you. This is fantastic. I just cooked it up 2 weeks ago. I'm not reading it. I'm letting you know right now. If you got a great idea for a TV show and you haven't worked in this business yet, I ain't looking at your TV show. I ain't trying to look at your idea for a TV show." Not me being mean. I'm saying you can have your TV show. You can have that idea for a TV show. Keep that. But now come up with 12 others. And in the meantime, get you a job in this business so you can understand how to build to a point to where you actually can pitch a TV show. You're not going to come out of school, no matter how many times you hear about that story, that kid who came out of CalArts and got his TV show right at his first, at his first try. That may have happened once, maybe even happened twice. That's not how this industry is built. So you should not come out of the business. You can come out of school with the aspirations of wanting a TV show, because I certainly did. But by the time I got my TV show, I came into this business and got my TV show, I was about 20 years deep. So you got a 20-year stretch in you? I hope so, because that's what it's going to take to really sort of help you realize what this business is about, and then have your dreams meet this business. It's going to take a lot of hard work. So be ready for the hard work, man. It's animation. It's fun. I worked hard in this business, but I had a lot of fun getting to where I needed to get to, and I got educated along the way, because I couldn't have done the Proud Family when I first came into this business. No way could I have done that. So be ready to work. Be ready to work and be ready to craft your skill set. And don't be disappointed when the first door closes on you. There's going to be lots of doors that you have to create to get open for you. And the way you do that is jump in this business, get your elbows and knees dirty, and be okay with it.
Yeah, and I think that advice applies to a lot of different facets of animation and probably film in general. And just as far as learning the depths of your craft and also developing a thick skin along the way.
Yeah, man. It takes a thick skin to be successful in this business. So yeah, be ready for that. A lot of people are not gonna like what you do, but you got to believe in it.
Yeah, you go to art school, and I assume it's probably the same for writing school. They'll help you get there.
All day. It's all the same. There's no easy path in this. The difference between animation and live action is that you can't necessarily cheat your way to the top in animation. You can talk your way to the top in live action. You don't necessarily have to have a real truest skill in live action to be a producer. Sometimes be an executive producer in live action, you just have to be attached to someone. I can get you Will Smith in this movie, and you're an executive producer. Not to say that, I love my man Lasseter. I'm not talking about Lasseter in this sense. I'm talking about Will's agent. But you can't like bullshit your way up to the top in this business. You got to really have the talent that speaks to where you're going. Everybody that I know that have achieved a level of talent, be it being a producer or a director, I can't think of one single director that I'm like, how the heck did he get a chance to direct that film? Like that doesn't work in this business. There's no buddy system truly to direct in this business. You got to really be worth your salt, because you got to lead a crew, and that crew will sniff you out. If you're not the dude that they think you are, you'll get sniffed out. And so the last thing you want to do is be on the top and get sniffed out as the person who doesn't have that much talent, because that'll be the first and the last time you may direct a movie. And listen, in animation, you're only going to direct like maybe 5 movies in your career anyway, if you actually are a director that consistently works in this business, believe it or not. So yeah, it's that you can have 8 years between your first film and your next film. So that's why I encourage a lot of you artists to certainly aspire to be directors, but learn lots of other different areas to allow you to maintain a level of employment, because a director comes with parts, can you storyboard? Can you animate? Do you paint? It's like all these parts the knowledge of those parts especially come with being a director. You can't just be sitting in a seat and think you don't have nothing to do. So be ready for that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for that great advice. And, going to art school, I feel like almost everyone that I went to school with didn't necessarily end up in the exact career path that they saw themselves in. They may have ended up in some other facet, but a lot of times it's, you know, that's the perfect thing for you that you didn't even necessarily know about. So, all right. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us today, Bruce, and thank you so much to our audience.
Yes.
We are continuing to roll out exciting virtual programs throughout our closure. So don't forget to sign up for our e-news and follow us on social media for the latest announcements. And visit our website calendar at waltdisney.org/calendar for a current schedule of offerings. Members of the museum get the scoop and priority access to all programming, including our virtual programming like Happily Ever After Hours, and now extended access with our new members-only portal, where we will host recordings of all of our Happily Ever After Hours. Visit us at waltdisney.org/donate to help support all of our virtual programming through either donations or membership. Another way to support the museum is by visiting our new eBay art auctions. Get a chance to win some new art for your home while supporting the museum. All proceeds from our online auctions help the museum continue our mission. So thanks so much for joining. We hope you and your loved ones are happy and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at the museum hopefully soon. Thanks so much, Bruce. We hope to see you back.
Right. Good seeing you guys.
You too.
Right.
Bye-bye.